Let me share this like a quiet conversation, not as a lecture, but as something you may reflect on when life gets loud. There is a kind of wisdom that doesn't shout, it whispers. And one of the deepest forms of that wisdom is this: there are moments in life when silence is not weakness, it is mastery. Because not every battle deserves your voice, not every misunderstanding deserves your explanation, and not every person deserves access to your inner world. So let's walk through 5 situations where silence becomes your strongest response. 1. Be silent when you are angry. Anger is a strange fire. It feels powerful in the moment, almost justified, almost necessary. It gives you the illusion that if you speak louder, you will feel lighter. But life has a subtle truth. It is often in anger that we speak the heaviest words and later carry the lightest regrets. When anger rises, something inside us shifts. We stop listening. We stop understanding. We stop seeing the person in front of us as a human being with emotions, and instead we see them as a target. In that moment, words become weapons, and weapons, once thrown, do not come back empty. Silence in anger is not about suppressing emotion. It is about protecting intelligence. Because anger temporarily disconnects you from your highest self. It replaces clarity with reaction. And anything born from reaction rarely carries wisdom. Have you ever noticed how, after an argument, the real pain is not what happened but what was said? Words have memory. Even when the mind forgets, the heart remembers. And relationships are often not broken by actions but by sentences spoken in heat. There is a small but powerful gap between feeling and responding. That gap is your freedom. In that gap lies your ability to choose who you want to be, instead of becoming who your anger pushes you to be. Silence in anger says, I will not let this temporary emotion define my permanent relationships. It says, I value peace more than being right in this moment. It says, I trust time more than my impulse. And interestingly, when you remain silent in anger, something shifts in the other person too. The fire has nothing to feed on. The argument loses oxygen. What could have escalated becomes still. This silence is not weakness. It is emotional discipline. It is spiritual maturity. It is choosing long-term peace over short-term expression. Because in the end, you don't remember the arguments you avoided, but you always remember the ones you didn't. 2. Be silent when you don't have all the facts. There is a subtle addiction in human nature, the addiction to form opinions quickly. In conversations, in social media, in relationships, we often feel an invisible pressure to say something. Silence feels like ignorance, while speaking feels like intelligence. But wisdom teaches something different. Wisdom says, not all gaps are meant to be filled immediately. Some gaps are meant to be understood slowly. When you speak without full information, you are not contributing clarity, you are contributing confusion with confidence. And that is a dangerous combination. Life is complex. Situations have layers. People have histories. And what you see on the surface is rarely the complete truth. Yet, we often rush to conclusions based on fragments. A single moment becomes a story. A single statement becomes a judgment. A single incident becomes a definition. Silence in such moments is not ignorance. It is intellectual humility. It is saying, I may not see the full picture yet, so I will not pretend that I do. There is a quiet dignity in waiting, in observing, in letting facts unfold instead of forcing interpretations. The most insightful people are not those who speak first, but those who understand deeply before speaking at all. Because when they finally speak, their words carry weight not because they are loud, but because they are grounded. Think of it like a puzzle. If you see only a few pieces, you cannot describe the entire image. But many people still try. And when more pieces appear later, they are forced to change their entire story. Silence protects you from this constant rewriting of your own opinions. It also protects your relationships. Because once you speak, people don't just hear your words, they form impressions. And impressions, once formed, are difficult to reshape. So silence here is not passivity, it is patience. It is allowing truth to mature before you attempt to define it. Because in life, it is always better to be late with clarity than early with confusion. 3. Be silent when someone is trying to provoke you. There are moments in life when people don't speak to communicate, they speak to provoke. Their intention is not understanding, but reaction. They are not looking for truth, they are looking for an emotional response. And in such moments, silence becomes your shield. When someone provokes you, they are often not talking about you. They are talking from within themselves there. Insecurities, their frustrations, their unresolved emotions. But if you are not aware of this, you begin to take everything personally. And that is where the trap begins. Because the moment you react, you enter their emotional space. You leave your calm center and step into their chaos. And in that chaos, no one wins. Silence in this context is not defeat, it is refusal. It is saying, I will not participate in unnecessary emotional escalation. There is a beautiful strength in not reacting. It is not weakness that is control. It is the ability to pause when every instinct is pushing you to respond. Think of a calm lake. When a stone is thrown into it, the lake does not chase the stone. It simply absorbs the impact and returns to stillness. That stillness is its power. Similarly, when you remain silent, you are not ignoring the situation, you are rising above it. Provocation loses power when it finds no resistance. It thrives on reaction, it feeds on ego, but silence starves it. And here is something deeper. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you strengthen your inner world. You train yourself not to be controlled by external noise. You reclaim your emotional independence. It is not easy. The ego wants to respond. The mind wants to prove. The heart wants to defend. But wisdom gently says, not everything deserves your energy. Because your peace is more valuable than winning a momentary exchange. In the long run, silence builds a reputation of strength. People begin to realize this person does not react unnecessarily. And ironically, that silence often earns more respect than any argument ever could. 4. Be silent when your success is still growing. Success is like a seed, and seeds are not meant to be displayed while they are still underground. There is a stage in growth that is extremely delicate. It is the stage where dreams are forming, plans are fragile, and progress is invisible. And this is precisely the stage where silence becomes your greatest ally. When you talk too early about your goals, you expose them to unnecessary energy comparison, doubt, opinions, and sometimes even subtle discouragement. Not everyone who hears your dreams will water them. Some may unintentionally dry them. Silence protects that early growth. There is a reason nature is quiet when transformation happens. A tree does not announce when it is becoming strong. It simply grows, day by day, slowly, steadily, without applause. And then one day, it becomes impossible to ignore. Success shared too early often carries pressure. You begin to live not just your journey, but other people's expectations of your journey. And that shifts your focus from growth to validation. Silence keeps your energy inward. It keeps your attention on building, not broadcasting. It also protects you from premature satisfaction. Sometimes, speaking about future success gives the mind a false sense of achievement. You start feeling like you have already done something significant, when in reality you are still on the path. Silence keeps you grounded. And when success finally arrives, it speaks louder than anything you could have said. Because real success does not need introduction, it creates presence on its own. People notice results more than promises. They respect outcomes more than plans. So, silence here is strategy, it is discipline, it is maturity, it is choosing to let your work become your voice. 5. Be silent when you are misunderstood. Being misunderstood is one of the most painful human experiences. It creates an urge inside you to correct, to explain, to defend, to prove your truth. It feels like your identity is being questioned, and naturally you want to restore it. But not every misunderstanding can or should be immediately fixed. Sometimes people don't misunderstand you because you fail to explain yourself. They misunderstand you because they are interpreting you through their own experiences, fears, and biases. And no amount of explanation can instantly change that lens. Silence in such moments is not surrender, it is trust. Trust that truth has its own timeline. Trust that clarity arrives when emotions settle. Trust that actions will eventually speak where words are not being heard. When you over explain, you often weaken your own position. You begin to chase understanding instead of allowing it to unfold naturally. And ironically, the more you try to prove yourself, the more uncertain you may appear. Silence preserves your dignity. It says, I do not need to fight to be understood by everyone. I will be understood by those who matter. There is also a deeper peace in accepting that not every opinion needs correction. Not every perception needs correction in real time. Some things resolve themselves when time adds missing context. And life has a quiet way of revealing truth. Situations evolve, actions accumulate, patterns become clear. Eventually, understanding arrives not through argument but through experience. Silence. Here is emotional strength. It is the ability to sit with discomfort without rushing to fix it. It is trusting that your character will eventually speak louder than someone else's misunderstanding. Because in the end, you are not defined by how loudly you defend yourself, but by how consistently you live your truth. And truth, when steady, does not need constant explanation.